As an airsoft player, you probably have heard this saying or this rhetorical, I guess you would say, rebuttal to the hobby of airsoft multiple times. And us here at airsoftgi.com, we get this comment all the time, is that, for the price of, let's say, a high-end or high-quality airsoft setup, you might as well just buy a real firearm. And of course, us as airsoft players who understand the hobby kind of just scoff at that, because let's face it, in the United States, a vast majority of airsoft players are also firearms enthusiasts who also own real firearms, but also, we laugh at that comment because whichever boomer is telling us, oh, just get real guns, just clearly doesn't understand the hobby that is airsoft. But we at airsoftgi.com one day just decided hey, what if we did a thought experiment? What if we can actually try and play airsoft with real firearms? Before we get into the thought experiment itself, purely for entertainment reasons only, obviously, why don't we address the elephant in the room? Yeah, so you have a very high quality or high-end airsoft gun that is decked out, set up to look super sweet, obviously. Sometimes it will run you anywhere between $600 to $1,200, or sometimes even more. And let's say instead we follow the advice of some outsider who says, hey, for $1,200, just buy a real gun. And let's say that we do. Well, there are a couple of caveats that often get overlooked. Number one, if you wanted to, let's say, take this specific setup for, let's say, this Tokyo Marui MWS, and you want to replicate it with a real firearm, it's going to be way more expensive, by the way. So already it's not going to cost just the $1,200 to get a real firearm to look exactly like this. It's going to cost a lot more. But obviously the bigger thing is that, well, airsoft in and of itself is a hobby. So just like being a firearms enthusiast who enjoys collecting and shooting real firearms, playing airsoft also is a separate hobby. Even though they might look similar on the outset, obviously they're enjoyed in completely different ways. For example, let's say that you are a firearms enthusiast, which if you're watching, I'm pretty sure that you are, right? You take your real firearms, your ammo, your safety equipment, and your targets, and you go out to a controlled range, you set up targets, you shoot them, and then you pack up and you go home, which is perfectly fine and enjoyable. But obviously with airsoft, it's enjoyed in a completely different way. Obviously with an airsoft gun, you'll be taking your gun itself, the ammo, and your safety equipment, and taking it to an airsoft field where you can shoot at other airsoft players, and you could also shoot at your friends in the proper regulated safety of an airsoft field. And at the end of the day, you guys all get to pack up and go home. So it's way more immersive, way more interactive compared to just shooting targets downrange at a shooting range. So they're completely different animals. But now let's get into the thought experiment. Can you possibly, feasibly play airsoft with real firearms? So what do I mean when I say playing airsoft with real firearms? Because obviously the statement itself kind of implies, well, airsoft means you're probably going to use airsoft guns, but we're using real firearms instead. So there are a few requirements. Number one, in order to play airsoft with real firearms, it needs to be a force-on-force environment, meaning that you are going to be shooting at an enemy player who is going to be shooting back at you with real firearms. The next requirement is obviously safety. It has to be done in a relatively safe way, so that way you and your enemy player can ideally, hopefully, go home at the end of the day instead of going to prison or worse. So let's talk about the firearms themselves. Obviously in the United States, where this is being recorded, the most ubiquitous, I guess you say, like firearm right now would be the AR-15 rifle. So let's say that you go out on the market and you probably get some good deal, some good discount on a 16-inch barrel length AR-15 for roughly about $500 to $600. So let's say you just find one for $500. And now after that, you need ammunition. Most real firearms are going to be firing at supersonic speeds, roughly past 1,100 feet per second, with an AR-15 firing 5.56. Usually that goes anywhere between 2,000 to 2,500 feet per second. It's going pretty ripping hot. And obviously shooting at someone else at most distances, you're not going to be able to walk away from that. So the next requirement is you're probably going to want to find some kind of subsonic ammunition, something probably specially made so that way it travels underneath 1100 feet per second. I did some digging online and found that there are some limited quantities of subsonic 5.56, interestingly enough, that exists out there. And you can buy, I think, a case of 100 rounds for about $125. And most of these rounds are gonna be right underneath that sound barrier. So they're gonna be traveling anywhere between 900 to 1,000 feet per second, right below the sound barrier. Even with a subsonic round at long distances, it can be extremely dangerous still. So what would be the next thing? You would need personal protective equipment, PPE. And of course, you could say, oh, you know, just wear real body armor, but that's not real full coverage. You can still get, let's say, dinged in the leg and have it puncture your femoral artery, then you're done. You know, you can get hit in the neck, you're done, right? You could be shot in a lot of other places, even at those distances, and still be seriously injured. So one thing that we kind of thought about is, what if we had players wear EOD suits, bomb suits? And the reason why we chose with bomb suits is, number one, they offer full coverage protection. Now you might say that, yeah, but Boaz, those are bomb suits, not body armor suits. But the reason why we chose EOD suits is because we were thinking that by those ranges at around 500 yards plus, those bullets would have lost so much energy that even with a direct hit, those bomb suits are still able to withstand those, I guess you would say, projectiles being thrown at you, because EOD suits are specifically designed to stop fragmentation and also distribute pressure of shock waves from bombs. So we did some digging online and we found a pretty good deal on an EOD suit. I found one online that runs for a very affordable cost of $35,000 a piece.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What the?
So we have your super cheap $500 rifle, you have your subsonic ammunition, and you have your bomb suit, and you're ready to play. But let's just say, for the sake of contingency, just for that added layer of safety, let's just say that you're not completely confident that your EOD bomb suit will protect you from a direct strike from a subsonic 5.56 round at 500 yards. Well, in that case, you might probably need to hire a trauma surgeon on standby. Now, I did some digging, and it turns out that the average trauma surgeon in most places, especially in a metropolitan area, those are where all the really good surgeons are, usually will charge about $200 an hour. Now, the thing is, you can get a 50% discount by splitting the cost of the trauma surgeon with your buddies. So technically, you'll only really be paying about $100 per hour if you split it 50-50. Now, let's say in order for you to get there and to set everything up and to walk out to 500 yards before you play, and also giving some time for the surgeon to set up his medical station, I'm assuming they're gonna charge you extra for the medical supplies. So I don't know how much that'll all cost, but you know, just throwing that out there. Let's just say it's probably gonna take about 4 hours, let's say. So you probably are gonna be spending minimum $400 each to have a trauma surgeon on standby. And let's just say that if you get seriously injured and you want to, call in like a medevac, like a helicopter, I don't know. That stuff is all insurance territory. I'm sure they'll bill you later. But let's just for the sake of the experiment, just say that the trauma surgeon will be able to fix you up in the case that you have a really serious injury out there on the field. With all of that being said, you have your cheap rifle, you got your subsonic ammo, you got your EOD suit for personal protective equipment, you got your big, giant, wide open imaginary field where you guys can play at, and you have medical staff on standby. Now, how would you play this game of Airsoft with real firearms? Rule number one is your minimum engagement distance. Minimum engagement distance is gonna be probably around 500 yards. Now, why did we come up with that number? Number one, it's just because that's probably around the bleeding edge of where most conventional 16-inch AR-15s really start to bleed off in their range, I guess, or terminal velocity. And because you're using subsonic ammunition, it's going to be traveling slower. We're theorizing that at the 500-yard mark, that's probably when the subsonic round will bleed off the vast majority of its energy. So that way, if one of you guys ends up getting hit, the likelihood of you guys getting seriously injured is very, very slim. And the next rule would be no optics. The reason why I say no optics, no accessories is because those people that are saying, for $500, $600, just buy a real gun. They're not factoring in optics because real gun optics are expensive. They're not factoring real accessories for real firearms because those can get expensive too. We're just gonna raw dog the rifle with iron sights just the way God intended. And I'm sure that's probably what they have in mind too, okay? Next up is going to be how the game is going to be played. Obviously, you guys are going to be shooting at each other. You're not allowed to lob your BBs. I mean, bullets. You're not allowed to lob your bullets, okay? I know a lot of you guys out there on the field, you try to extend the range of your BBs by lobbing it a little bit, okay? We've all done it. We've all been there. But you can't really do that with real bullets because of safety. If you're going to be mortar lobbing your rounds at other targets, you don't want to hit your car. Also, you don't want to hit the private trauma surgeon that you just hired, okay? Because yeah, if one of you guys get hit, he can stitch you up, but who's gonna stitch the surgeon up when he gets hit? I don't know, okay? And finally, the game will be over when one of the players gets shot by that subsonic round. And let's cross our fingers and our toes and pray to God that he will be okay. So that brings us to the conclusion of our thought experiment of playing airsoft with real firearms. Can you do it hypothetically? Yeah, sure. Should you do it? Absolutely not. As you've seen throughout the video, this is very expensive, way more expensive than playing airsoft ever will be. And is it going to be enjoyable? I don't know. Just personally, just imagining myself in that situation, I don't know how much I would actually enjoy playing that game. But also, it's very, very illegal. Just, yeah, do not try to attempt doing this on your own because not only is it going to cost a lot, but you're probably going to end up in prison or worse. And one hidden cost, I guess you would say, let's say hypothetically you do play airsoft with real firearms with your buddy, you're probably gonna get the cops called on you. The trauma surgeon's probably also gonna snitch on you probably because he has to just watch you guys shoot at each other with real guns and pretend that's an okay thing to do. And yeah, so the hidden cost is you're probably gonna have to hire lawyers to try to get you the best plea deal possible. I mean, even if you called Saul Goodman, attorney at law, okay, the best he could probably do is get you a nice mild 10 to 15 year sentence in a federal prison. I don't know. So all my war nerds out there are probably foaming at the mouth right now saying, Boaz, you idiot! The next real thing above airsoft is simunition or UTM usage, not shooting at each other with real firearms. And I agree with you. Yes, UTM is probably going to be the next thing above airsoft when it comes to pure realism because UTM systems basically allow you to take a real firearm and then modify it to fire UTM rounds. Now, for those of you guys who don't know what UTM is, I guess you would say really spicy paintballs. They're kind of using metal cartridges that still have some form of gunpowder in there that fire like this plasticky, like wax kind of composite material projectile that has paint in it. So it's basically, like I said, very high powered, very spicy paintball. And yes, I would agree with you, that is very realistic and it looks pretty cool. But one thing that a lot of people don't consider is the cost. So why don't we break that down? Now we're gonna go all the way back to square one with the UTM route, okay? Some boomer FUD looks at your sweet airsoft setup and says, you spent $600 on this, why don't you just buy a real gun? And you tell them, okay, boomer, and so you go out to your local gun store and you score yourself that really same great Black Friday Christmas special that you can get a nice $500 AR-15 for, okay? So you got that. Obviously now you need to modify it to accept UTM ammunition. So you have to go to UTM and purchase the training bolt or the UTM bolt to modify your AR-15, where basically you are just gonna swap out your conventional real live ammo bolt with the training UTM bolt, so that way it will only fire UTM ammunition. Next up, you're gonna need to buy the magazine itself as well, which will run you around $20, so that way you could reliably feed and load your UTM training ammunition. All that being said, with the UTM system, it's probably gonna run you north of $400 just to do that to your bare bones $500 AR-15. Next up, obviously, it's going to be personal protective equipment. Yeah, this is not airsoft and it's not paintball, okay? So it will do some serious permanent damage to you if you're not wearing the proper safety equipment. So I went online to UTM's official site and I found myself some goggles and face mask combo, so that way it'll protect your eyes, your nose, and your mouth, so that way you won't get any permanent damage when you get lit up in the face with it. So the goggles and mask combo will run you about $138. And if you're more conscious about your nether regions, UTM will also sell to you a groin protector for $51 as well. So that way you can kind of have more peace of mind of playing around with these UTM guns and walking away home relatively safe. Now we have the PPE and we have your UTM gun ready to go. Obviously the next thing is you need the ammo. So one thing interesting about UTM ammo is that they're not going to sell it to you in small quantities like you would with live ammunition. You can't just go into a store and just buy a box of 20. You need to buy in bulk.
Oh my God, bro. Oh, hell no, man. What
the upside is you get to play more, you get more trigger time, I guess. The downside is it's gonna cost you about $1,000 and you can't really buy it in smaller quantities than that. Now, but here's a kicker though. They will not sell to you directly, the civilian. You need to have some form of agency credential, like not just you being a member of the US military or you being some form of local law enforcement. No, you need to be at an agency level. You need to be able to have some kind of credential to purchase that ammo for your specific agency. So let's just say hypothetically, somehow you're able to pull some strings and you're able to buy that 1,000 rounds or 900 rounds of UTM ammunition. Great. So now you have all that stuff. You can't just take it to a normal airsoft field and play with it. They're not gonna let you use that to shoot other local players with it because they're not wearing the proper safety equipment. Their insurance will not cover the amount of damage these UTM rifles will do to their facilities. Even though that they are rated for non-lethal force-on-force training, it can still do some serious damage to the property itself and can do a lot of serious damage to just a lot of the furniture and obstacles that a conventional airsoft field would have. So you need to go to a very specifically rated shoot house in order to use UTM guns and UTM ammunition. All right, so as you can see here, we have our fake imaginary shopping list for, let's say, playing airsoft with real firearms or playing airsoft with UTM rifles. Obviously gonna be way more expensive than just playing airsoft with airsoft guns. And a lot of the comments I think us as airsofters get by saying, oh, you know, with the amount of money you're spending on airsoft guns, you might as well buy a real gun. They completely misunderstand the point of airsoft. You know, because at the end of the day, airsoft is purely designed not to harm anybody, but to be enjoyed recreationally with friends at an airsoft field, and with the proper safety equipment, you guys can walk away home just fine and laugh about all the great times that you've had at the field. Not to mention the other more realistic alternatives to playing airsoft that we talked about in this video are illegal and also might be highly restricted. So I would say, in conclusion, airsoft is probably the best or as realistic as you can get for force-on-force application in the United States for you, the private citizen. And of course, the same people that will look at your airsoft setup and your loadout and say, oh, you know, you could buy a real gun with that money. Naturally, the next thing that they'll probably tell you is, like, if you're already dressed up like this and kitted out this way, why don't you just join the military? I think the funny thing though, and the ironic part is actually airsoft is a pretty powerful and effective recruitment tool for the military. There are tons of people that started out playing airsoft and then they grew up to join the military. It's a very common route actually. And a lot of people who are actively in the military still enjoy airsoft. I mean, take a look at organizations like Milsim West. They're a complete organization that a majority, the staffing members, are current and former military members. And tons of those people play airsoft and they enjoy the hobby. So it's a very interesting cross-pollinating world. But again, those people that will tell you to join the military if you like airsoft, you know, just to demean you, they completely miss the point of airsoft. Airsoft is a hobby because at the end of the day, you guys can shoot each other out of field, pretend like you're in Call of Duty or Battlefield, and then you get to go home. Whereas if you join the military, that's a pretty serious commitment. And obviously it's a very respectable life choice and we respect the people that do. But you know, you're kind of signing a big portion of your life away to commit to the military. You don't just get to go home at the end of the day most of the time. And not to mention the vast majority of people who are in the US military, don't really see combat or are in any active combat arms role where they get to tinker around with guns all the time. That's just not the reality. Alrighty, so that about does it for this really funny thought experiment, just because, you know, for me personally, I've been in the hobby for more than 15 years and I've gotten a lot of those comments as well, just personally playing Airsoft. You know, like I would have family members and even sometimes complete strangers just approach me and just tell me, hey, why don't you just buy a real gun? Or, oh, why don't you join the military? And we just decided, hey, what if we just try to take things to its logical conclusion with this really wacky thought experiment? Obviously, for like the 5th time in this video, do not attempt any of this, what we just said in the thought experiment at home. It is illegal and very dangerous. Do not replicate this. But I just thought it would just be funny for us just to explore that concept. Now, if you guys like what you're seeing, please make sure to like this video as well as subscribe if you haven't already, and ring that bell icon to get notified every time we upload a new video. If you want to support the channel directly, the best way to do so is by going to airsoftgi.com for all your airsoft needs. We have hundreds, if not thousands, of new products being added every day, so make sure that you don't miss out. And we always have really great deals going on, so make sure that you never miss out. Make sure to head on over to airsoftgi.com for all your airsoft needs. My name is Boaz. We'll catch you next time, Mail Gang.